pass on through any of the volunteers to me, and we'll take up the questions on the cue cards first. And I present you, dear friends, Dr. Abdes. No, I think this is not the question to be put now. This is something else. This is not mine. This is not from my computer.
Slide, please.
Can I change it? Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for the kind words. Thank you, organizer. So I thought that rather than talking about gliptins and heart failure, let's look into the anti-diabetic agent and heart failure, and then we will look into what is happening with the gliptins. So I put it like the heart failure, anti-hyperglycemic agent, cardiovascular outcome trial, what's emerging. Well, my assumption is understanding of heart failure is yet not properly understood. And I will show you data which will make your eyebrows raised by seeing some interesting data that how we have been, not keeping in the loop about the heart failure. Well, we know that diabetes increases the heart failure in the tune of 2.5% if you compare with the non-diabetic populations, as you can see in this graph. But we are also now aware that heart failure is a big entity. If you look into any big trial, many times this myocardial infarction, a stroke, and unstable angina is taken into account as a primary objective. And heart failure is not been included in a primary objective, although we know that heart failure is one of the most common complications over and above MI and stroke. So it's a US FDA call that from now on we should add heart failure as a primary event, and that's why we are probably talking, because it's not been included as a primary objective in any study. Now, what our perception earlier had, that if you are having a diabetes, you will develop a heart failure, and this risk increases by 15% with every increase in 1% of HbA1c. So we believe that if you reduce the blood glucose, if you control the blood glucose, you will reduce the heart failure. Unfortunately, it has never happened. And I will show you very recent data. This is published on March 17 from all principal investigators from Saber-TME and Examine trial. One of the person is the son of Dr. Sanjay Chatterjee. He is also the author of this particular paper in Lancet, Diabetes and Endocrinology. And I will tell you, this is one of the largest meta-analysis of randomized controlled trial from the 14 randomized controlled trial, looking into what happens to the heart failure if you control the blood glucose. And let's see what happened here. So this is the outcome data from 14 randomized controlled trial, and they look into what happened to the MACE, major adverse outcome. You could see here clearly that there's a benefit by 5%. If you reduce blood glucose, you reduce the cardiovascular event by 5%. That is primarily derived from reduction in MI by 18%. So that's very clear that if you control blood glucose, you do good to the patient. Now, when you look into the heart failure, that is very fascinating and paradoxical as well. Moment you reduce the blood glucose, you increases the heart failure by 14%. So it's a trade-off between a 5% benefit in MACE versus 14% increase in heart failure. That is very interesting. So now we know that if you reduce blood glucose, you increases the heart failure. What a fascinating data has emerged now. And you closely look into this trial, how it has happened. These are the 14 randomized controlled trial where they got the advantage of 5% in MACE event. But unfortunately, data with heart failure is very gloomy to us. If you reduce blood glucose, you increases heart failure by 14%. That looks to be primarily because of the trial which was included with glitazones. And I will come back to the oral anti-diabetic agent and the heart failure. Let's look into this chart. When we look into this chart, we can clearly see the trials which included PPR agonist, TJD. They have a clear increase in the heart failure by 42%. And if you add the current data from Saber-TME and Examine, they also looks to be increasing heart failure by 25% here, combining Saber-TME 27, statistically significant. I will go into detail of that. Also interesting to suggest that intensive glucose control in these 4 seminal trials has no benefit on heart failure, and neither it increased the heart failure. One data from insulin glargine in origin trial, the incident heart failure was also neutral. So this is probably only trial with insulin which suggested that insulin may not be bad for the heart. But then there was no primary objective of heart failure in this study. This was just an incidental heart failure. I will go into little details about that. But if you go back to this slide, you don't find where is sulfonylurea or metformin. So I looked into the literature, how these drugs will fare in a patients with heart failure. So this is the data with metformin. There is no trial where the metformin as a monotherapy were conducted in heart failure. So I'm talking about heart failure studies. There's no trial. But yet we know metformin is a safe drug. When you look into the randomized control trial, we look into the incidental heart failure. So we have got two trials here, RECORD and ADOPT, where metformin is compared with glyburide or rosiglitazone. What is interesting to note that even in the metformin arm, the heart failure was similar to the rosiglitazone and higher than the glibenclamide. You can see here clearly, nobody is aware about that. It has happened in this trial. That you have got a metformin which has got the same kind of heart failure as with the rosiglitazone. That was very interesting. When we look into the data of different systematic reviews or meta-analysis, they show it's a neutral, doesn't increase heart failure. We do have some observational studies also suggesting metformin as a neutral drug and not increasing the heart failure in particular. So when we look into sulfonylurea in the heart failure, this is the data which you have. There is no randomized control trial which looked into the heart failure as a primary outcome. Some incidental heart failure data I shown you about RECORD and ADOPT trial. Unfortunately, the data from the observational studies with sulfonylurea, that looks to be pretty bad, and it was associated to be increasing heart failure in a different observational study. So this is the backlog data with the SUs in heart failure. When you look into the insulin as a whole in heart failure, we don't have any randomized controlled trial which looked heart failure as an outcome. As I suggested in the origin trial, incidental heart failure was neutral and insulin glargine was not associated with the heart failure. But that contemplates into the all insulin was rapid acting or a multiple cutaneous injection therapy or a higher dose of insulin is not yet known. But some data from observational studies linked increased heart failure with insulin as well. So this is the data about anti-hyperglycemic and heart failure. Now come to the big focus about gliptins and the heart failure, this which we all are talking. I'm sure you are aware 3 days from now on 14th April, US FDA will sit with all the data with heart failure from SABRE-TMA and EXAMINE trial. Either they will put, if they find this data is significant, they will put a PI, mentioning that you cannot use in a heart failure or a drug increases heart failure. Let's wait for 3 more days. We'll be able to know about this gliptins and heart failure in little detail. But then if you look back into the data, what happened with gliptins and heart failure, we had first trial, it's called VIVID trial with vildagliptin. This is a small study and where the 250 patients were compared with the placebo in a patients already having the heart failure. So they were the class 1 to 3 heart failure. Class 4 was excluded from the study and they compared over 1 year. And you could see here what was the result in this trial. They suggested that vildagliptin is a safe molecule and doesn't increase heart failure if you look into their primary objective, this study here. But there was some wrong signals as well with the vildagliptin. You closely look into this graph suggesting increase in the left ventricular in diastolic volume with vildagliptin, also certain increase in the systolic volume. There was suggesting there could be some mechanism where this drug might be acting and doing some failure in the relaxation in the diastolic phase to the heart. So that led some kind of signals of something wrong about ventricular mechanism with the gliptins. But let me remind you that there is no GLP-1 receptor in ventricular myocardium or endocardium. So if anything is happening, it is happening indirectly, and we will look into why it is happening. Now let's look into 2 big trials called SABRE-TMA and EXAMINE, what has happened in this trial. So this is SABRE-TMA. You all are aware in the SEXA arm there was increase in heart failure, which was a statistically significant 27% increase in heart failure. Now if it is a real heart failure, so how much is the chance to increase the heart failure? So you deduct this 3.5 by 2.5. So the absolute risk of heart failure was 0.7%. What does it mean? it means that if you calculate number needed to harm, which will come down to 1000 divided by 7, means 142. So if you treat 142 patients with sexagliptin, one will develop heart failure if at all sexagliptin is causing heart failure. They also found that the baseline heart failure, those patients already having heart failure, because 13% of the patients in SABRE-TIMI trial had a previous heart failure, and they probably presented more recurrence of heart failure, and because their baseline BNP were higher. As opposed to in EXAMINE, so let's look into the data with EXAMINE. Again, there was a trend of increase, although it was statistically non-significant. But if you closely again look into the absolute number of harm here, so that comes to 0.6% here, which will come to 152, but here it was not significant. That is the problem in statistics. So when you have got a difference of 0.7%, it is statistically significant. When you have got a difference of 0.6%, it was not statistically significant. Unfortunately, that's the problem with the statistical analysis. But what they find that the prior heart failure or increase in pro-BNP were not associated with a recurrent heart failure. That EXAMINE clearly suggested that even if your patient has got a heart failure and you have given elogliptin, it will not increase a further heart failure. And this is, if you combine, as I mentioned, still you find there is an increase in heart failure with this data suggested. Now, when you closely look into what was the difference between SABRE-TIMI and EXAMINE, so I pulled all this data for easy understanding. You could see here all 100% patients in EXAMINE had acute myocardial infarction or unstable angina. All were ACS patients, whereas in SABRE-TIMI trial, around 78 to 79% had a prior heart disease, and you could see the difference between these two trials. Majority of the patients were getting aspirin or a statin in EXAMINE, whereas 75 to 78% were getting aspirin in statin. That can also change, the outcome in the trial. Many people ask, what about the TJD? That looks pretty, low here. That TJD cannot be accountable for increase in heart failure in this study. So this is in the baseline characteristics of the patients, what has happened. Also, if you look into a little bit difference in terms of duration of the trial, diabetes duration, it was around 7 years, whereas in SABRE-TIMI, it was a little longer, up to 10 years. These are the differences between these two trials, which may or may not have changed the outcome between their statistical significance. Well, so very recently, you could see on 10th March, there was a data published from EXAMINE trial, and they reanalyzed this heart failure data, and they clearly now suggested that there is no increase in heart failure, at least with the elogliptin in EXAMINE trial, and they did two outcome data suggesting neutrality of the molecule as far as the heart failure is concerned. Now, there are few questions which must be raised with this outcome. Number one, why there is no superiority? We expected that gliptins would have pleiotropic effect, which was discussed by the previous speakers. If that is the case, then why there is no superiority? Or there is a heart failure increase in the SABRE-TIMI, what could be the possible reason why it was happening? So I thought, let's look into different things, whether it is because of play of chance, or there could be any mechanistic reason why gliptins might be increasing heart failure. Maybe the baseline heart failure inclusion in these trials led to increase in heart failure. That also we will look into. And what next? What drug to write in a patient, those who are a known heart failure? So this is what we are going to discuss in the next couple of slides. So the first question is why we did not achieve the superiority. Here is the answer. Because these trials are safety trials. These are not a superiority cardiovascular outcome trial, and there is a difference between a safety trial and a superiority cardiovascular outcome trial. What is this difference? You have to adjust the dose to maintain the HbA1c in the comparator arm. You cannot leave comparator arm. As opposed to the superiority trial, like for statin trial, you do not need to do any adjustment. You give a statin in one arm, no statin in another arm, find out whether there is a superiority or not. Unfortunately, in cardiac safety trial, these are not allowed. You have to maintain the similar level of HbA1c in your comparator arm. And this could be the difference why we did not get superiority in these trials. So there is a clear answer for, and you never expect that any trial so far being conducted or already published will ever show superiority. We also thought about GLP-1 agonist, because we have got a top-line result from ELIXIR trial, which will be fully published on 8th June again in Boston. So we are looking into that trial, but the top-line results again suggested that there is no superiority. It was a neutral trial. Lixisenatide did not have any superiority versus placebo in ELIXIR trial. So, and this reason is very simple, and this is the reason because these are a safety trial, not a superiority trial. Now, let's see how can this increase in heart failure in SABRE-TIMI would have happened. So I closely look into the data, what was happening in the SABRE-TIMI trial. So in the SABRE-TIMI trial, it was planned that they will include 12,000 patients. They will do it for 5 years, at least 3 years of follow-up, 2 years of active period, and they looked for event number of 1,040. Let me tell you, when the SABRE-TIMI trial was planned, it was planned as a superiority trial, as opposed to EXAMINE trial or TECOS trial, which is a non-inferiority trial, and secondary objective is to find superiority. Unfortunately, their statistical calculation goes somewhere wrong because the prediction of making a statistical significance was with the superiority. So what happened is they expected that we would have a 2.8% event per year, but after 2 years, you could see here, this event was pretty low. And the sponsors were not interested to further continue the trial because of the expenditure in any randomized controlled trial. So they got 11,000 patients, but the event rate was only 2.1%. They expected to have a 2.8% to achieve a statistical significance. So what they did, unfortunately now, it looks like they hurriedly added 4,500 patients to increase the CV event to make a statistical significant. And finally, see what happened. It becomes 16,492, stopped at 2 years because event rate gone beyond the expectation. From 2.8%, it reached to 3.65% immediately moment they added 4,500 patients in this trial. This is one area that probably gives you some clue that this may be the reason why there was increase in heart failure. Now, the drug, if a drug is the culprit to cause a heart failure, and if you continue it for a long 2.1 year SABRE-TIMI trial, then you expect that this increase in heart failure will be further progressing. But that opposite has happened. If you closely look into that, see here at 180 days, HR was 1.8, then it gone down to 1.48, then at the end of a study, it came to 1.27. That is progressively decreasing. If the drug would have been causing heart failure, it would have been progressively increasing. That also gives us a hint that the drug may not be a culprit directly, otherwise it could have done a recurrence in heart failure with an increasing HR over the time, which has not happened, and opposite has happened. So something must be very tricky behind that. Then I also looked into whether the baseline heart failure data could be detrimental, because if you see the big trial here, UKPDS, DCCT, Origin, VADT, either they excluded the patients from heart failure or they did not report it. If any paper do not report you, means they have excluded it. So big trial excluded the heart failure patients from their inclusion criteria. But see what happened. This is 4 trials. So I put it, I also seen into TECOS has included 18% of baseline heart failure. EXAMINE 28, SABRE-TIMI 13, in ELIXIR 12.4% had a baseline heart failure. Whether this heart failure inclusion might have given this data of increase in heart failure. So 2 trial result is there. SABRE-TIMI said yes, those patients having a baseline heart failure has increased the heart failure, whereas EXAMINE said no, we did not find in a patient having a baseline heart failure had an increase in heart failure. So we are in a hanging situation and do not know what would be the cause behind this increase in heart failure. Now, if you closely look into, could there be any mechanistic reasons by which gliptins might be increasing heart failure? So for that, you need to understand some DPP-4 substrate. Some of them could be beneficial to heart. So the green mark, GLP-1, SDF1 alpha, and brain natriuretic peptide, BNP, are good for the health. If you give a DPP-4, this all 3 is increased, which is good for the heart. Unfortunately, if you give a DPP-4, it also increases peptide YY and neuropeptide Y, which is bad for the heart because they are the vasoconstrictor. In between lies the substance P. It appears now that substance P might be doing a trick for either good or bad with this drug. Substance P in a smaller quantity is good for the heart, but if it increases in a higher quantity, it becomes bad for the heart because of several reasons. I will explain you what was happening. And when we closely look into this trial, although 80 to 84% of the patients were getting a RAS blocker. In the Saber-TIMI trial, majority of the patients were taking ACE inhibitor. And same is the story with the TECOS. TECOS is also almost 54% patients are on ACE inhibitor. So there are, some mechanistic explanation whether combining a ACE inhibitor with a gliptins was responsible for increase in heart failure. How it is happening? Because substance P is metabolized to their inactive metabolite with both angiotensin converting enzyme as well as DPP-4. So if you give a combination of DPP-4 with a ACE inhibitor, there is a profound increase in the substance P, which can in turn increase the sympathetic tone, can increase the heart rate, and can increase the heart failure. This could be one mechanistic explanation behind this heart failure issue. And I also looked into the literature, is there any data? And there is a data to suggest that if you combine with the ACE inhibitor, you could see the norepinephrine level also goes up, and that might be doing, this is with sitagliptin, this is with vildagliptin, there's a statistically significant rise in norepinephrine that might be accountable for this heart failure along with substance P when you look into the gliptins with ACE inhibitor combinations. Now coming back to the same study, that meta-analysis, there was an interesting conclusion, and that may probably provoke some insight of understanding heart failure. What they found is the risk of heart failure was associated with weight gain. So if you increase the body weight by 1 kg, there was 7.1% increase in the heart failure. So a molecule which increases body weight might increase heart failure. They also suggested that if you increase the duration of a trial, you could reduce this heart failure outcome. So every one additional year of follow-up, there was 13.7% greater reduction in the heart failure. So if I assume if this EXAMINE trial or Saber-TIMI trial, which was 18 month or 2 years trial, could have extended, they might have get a different data on heart failure. This is what this meta-analysis suggests, that you increase the duration, you might get the benefit, in fact, because there is a 13.7% lowering in the heart failure. Also fascinating to note that if you reduce the blood glucose, as I said, 1% increase in previous CVD also with a 0.7%, and most important one, that if you decrease the HbA1c by 0.1%, you increases the heart failure by 4%. These are, hypothesis generating and actually thought-provoking data of heart failure, which we were never aware about in the past. Now, so what about the TECOS trial? We don't have any result from the TECOS trial. TECOS trial was completed. Their baseline characteristics had just been published. We are all waiting for the entire result, but there are some characteristic difference between TECOS trial compared to Saber-TIMI and EXAMINE. Saber-TIMI, this TECOS trial is relatively longer. It's a 3-year trial compared to EXAMINE and Saber-TIMI. EXAMINE was 18 months. This was 2.1 year. This is 3-year trial. There's a difference in the baseline HbA1c as well. In TECOS trial, the average HbA1c was 7.3%. So you could see here, basically this is a trial which will give you a hint. It will never be a superiority trial to my knowledge. Let's see the result, because the trial is a safety trial, as I mentioned earlier. But then if this trial really shows some benefit, then it is absolutely a pleiotropic benefit of sitagliptin over and above any other gliptins. It's not a class effect, then it's an individual molecular effect with the sitagliptin and their pleiotropic effect. Let's wait for that. But then I compiled, data of Saber-TIMI and EXAMINE with TECOS. How could you make a difference between these trials? These are the exclusion criteria. Still, we are not aware the patients with a severe renal dysfunction were excluded in this trial, but yes, in TECOS. Some patients with NIH class 4 is also included. As I mentioned, 18% of the patients had got heart failure in TECOS, of which class 3-4 belongs to 3% in that particular trial. So these are a little bit difference between their baseline data of TECOS, EXAMINE, Saber-TIMI. We also have got now, see the baseline changes. We know that there is a 0.3% reduction in both EXAMINE and Saber-TIMI. We need to look upon what is happening with the TECOS trial. There are some difference in terms of primary objective outcome. For the first time, unstable angina has been included in the primary outcome in the TECOS trial, which was not there in the Saber-TIMI and EXAMINE. As I said, heart failure 18% and class 3-4 3% is already included in TECOS trial. That might give us some hint about what is happening in this trial. And this is the patient characteristic here. Average duration is 9 years. The median HbA1c is 7.3%. 54% are getting ACE inhibitors, similarly like Saber-TIMI trial. If this trial again shows increase in heart failure, then again this mechanistic, explanation behind ACE inhibitor and gliptins will come into the forefront, because this trial will tell us a lot about what is happening with gliptins and heart failure. Well, so I will come to last part of my presentation, what drug to prescribe then. I have shown you the entire data of anti-hyperglycemic drugs. See here, metformin, no randomized controlled trial. If you look into incidental heart failure, it was same with the ROSI in ADOPT. Systemic review says, yes, it is good. Some trial says it's neutral, at least it is not harmful. But when you look into sulfonylurea, insulin, and DPP-4 inhibitor combined here, see this everywhere is looking like a red. We don't have any drug, currently to suggest that it would be good in the heart failure. This is the data which you have. And if you closely look into the entire data that suggests that other than metformin, no drug is safe. And this could be the mechanism why this drug might be causing heart failure. So you can see here, these are the mechanistic explanation how this drug was causing heart failure. So to conclude my presentation, there is no anti-diabetic drug which appeared absolutely safe in heart failure. You can use metformin, but not even in class 3 and 4 heart failure, as I said. And there is no clear or any mechanistic reason to believe that gliptins should increase heart failure. It currently appears to be due to a play of chance. It's called class 1 error in statistics. Let's wait for US FDA meeting on 14th April and full trial result of TECOS. Although insulin is the most commonly used drug, but we don't have data also about the insulin, whether it increases or decreases or it's a neutral. But only evidence we have is about the origin, which did not find increase in heart failure. Thank you very much.